Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, I want to actually cover something a little bit different. So this is like a Reddit channel. They compiled a bunch of Reddit questions about, I think they do some fat stuff, but they probably talk about other stuff as well. I'm not really a Reddit person, to be honest, but I want to go ahead and explore it today and I guess see what people say to this question of why do we hate fat people or whatever. And I want to just offer my perspective as a lifelong fat person. So let's go ahead and get started.
As well. Today's post is, why is there so much hate for fat people, especially girls? As someone who always liked larger women, it always startled and saddened me a lot to see how much hate, verbal, and even physical violence they have to experience. I just don't get it. Is it really that some people need some group of people that they can despise? Where does that anger stem from?
So I'm going to go ahead and try to answer it myself. And I would say that there is a certain type of person where they don't like people who are not attractive. So there is that right out the gate. I think that when it comes to obesity, there is a lot of these other concepts that go along with it. There's a lot of people that are very against the idea of consumption or consumerism in general. There's a lot of people that are against the overconsumption, which I think is fair. There's a view of people wasting food or wasting resources, being overweight, that I think a lot plays into a lot of it. I would assume that a lot of times people that have a huge hatred for fat people, they're probably people who struggle financially. I think the other thing about it is it is one of those groups where a lot of people who feel marginalized in general, they will compare themselves to fat people to feel better than them. So I think it's kind of like where the hatred of fat people comes from. It usually comes from a scarcity mindset, whether it's like a scarcity of your own acceptance or an emotional scarcity, or whether it's from a resource scarcity, or like with the airplane thing, a scarcity of space. I think that there's a lot of people that feel that fat people are entitled as well. There's a lot of people that feel that fat people are lazy, that fat people are this and that. So there are a lot of these sort of stereotypes that do exist that aren't always true, I will say. I think a lot of times when people say a fat person is lazy, it's actually that they're less healthy or they're unhealthy. And it's hard to actually perform at a normal level if you're really sick. So again, on this channel, I try to educate about what obesity actually is, and what it isn't is it is not a social class. It's not a financial class. It's not a marginalized group. It's not any of these things. It's a symptom of a disease. And that disease could be hypothyroidism, more than likely, especially if they're very big, but also mental illnesses like BED and food addiction can also be a part of a disease that is causing somebody to be obese. So that's how people need to think about it. Obesity is a symptom that's a part of a greater list of symptoms that involve being exhausted for the most part. And so I do think it is unfair to say that people are lazy, because a lot of fat people, you'll find that they actually put drastically more effort into things than thin people. It's just they have a lot of barriers even within their own body to perform. So it's not a matter of effort, it's more a matter of what is physically possible. Now let's continue. Let's see what they say.
It's the image people get of fat people as being lazy and hedonistic.
Pretty much dead on.
Whether this is true or not, this is how they're viewed. Growing up, I was always super skinny, but was never really active or anything. As I became an adult, I've seen the pounds creep up on me, and it's really irritating. Right now, I'm about 20 pounds heavier than what I would like to be, so a few weeks ago, I decided that I was going to take up running. I went to Lady Foot Locker to buy a new pair of running shoes, and when I asked the young girl who was working there where the running shoes were located, she looks at me and says, "Do you even run?" She had the worst grin on her face I've ever seen. It's crap like that that can ruin your self-esteem. That bee should not have a job anymore. If you're interested in cutting weight...
That's funny. It's funny that that comment said that. I would just say, like, people are very nasty. Like, even just today, I was commenting on something and I was commenting against veganism. I do not support veganism at all. Pretty much from the ground up. Nothing about it. But the first thing that vegans will do is they use my weight to try to prove their point. And I will reiterate, I have only ever gained weight on a vegan diet because you're starving. You starve to death on a vegan diet and you eat so many calories and you never get satisfied. I would never suggest it to lose weight, especially not from a morbidly obese standpoint. Your satiety, whatever, however you pronounce it, is trash on a vegan diet. Absolute trash. So it is one of the worst diets to lose weight. I will vehemently speak against it. But what do? They use my weight. Whenever I'm in a political discussion with somebody, they use my weight against me. They will use it just because it's like something that they feel that they can. Now, I don't personally care that much about my weight because I don't identify with it. So when people do that, it doesn't do anything to me because I don't actually care. I only care about my weight like socially in terms of like the dating marketplace. That's about it. If it didn't affect my dating life at all, I literally would not care whatsoever socially. Now, apart from that, I do care a lot about the health stuff, obviously. And that's what motivates me to do something about it is the health aspect. But as far as like what other people think, I would not care. If not for the dating world, I wouldn't care at all. Because I just don't. I'm not that kind of person. But yeah, I will just say people they use it a lot in that way. So I don't know why that person would say that. It's just one of those like easy digs or something. It's weird. People are really weird when it comes to the issue of fatness. It's really, really bizarre. Okay, let's continue.
Here's some tips. 1. If you're too overweight, activities like running can be counterintuitive because they're high impact, and with the extra weight you're carrying around, you can wreak havoc on your joints. Bicycling or ellipticals are a better option for heavier folks until you get into better shape, that is.
So I would say it's actually probably better to walk. Or if you're really, really big, then do swimming. Just because bicycling, it can be kind of tough if you're really fat. It's not like the best. And ellipticals are like, I won't speak for every single very fat person, but I think most people who are extremely overweight, myself included, look at ellipticals and just see sheer terror. It just looks really unstable. Like I would never. You wouldn't catch me using an elliptical ever, just because I don't think those activities are very, very fat friendly. I would suggest walking, anything swimming related, and then weightlifting to build up muscle strength because it helps in so many different ways for metabolic health. Okay.
2. While aerobic exercise is excellent for your health, the calories burnt are probably not going to be enough to counteract improper dietary choices.
So I do think aerobic exercise is really, really overly promoted in terms of obesity, because if you do anything as an overweight person, it's aerobic exercise. I know that sounds terrible, but when you're very, very, very big, and I mean like 400 pounds, 300 pounds, as a woman, right? Like in that range, anything you do is an aerobic workout. So really it's about walking. And if you can't walk, then just moving your arms. It's literally at that level. You just need to move, do something as soon as possible. And of course, I do think diet is paramount, and it's really important to start with diet. But yeah, I think aerobic exercise, it's kind of over emphasized because all it will really do is it helps you burn more calories, but you do get hungrier for those calories burned. So it doesn't really do anything on its own other than give you a little bit more calories to work with. In my opinion, it's better to eat more and move more than to eat less and move less. Like, as long as you're not just going crazy calorically, I think it's better. Like, if you were to exercise and burn like 1,000 extra calories a day, I think it's better to eat 1,000 extra calories per that day than to not exercise and not eat those calories. I think the body benefits from having calories come in and out. It helps metabolically. But anyways, let's continue.
3, the easiest way to lose weight is to cut calories and shift the calories that you consume away from carbohydrates and towards fat and protein.
So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the macronutrients are going to be very different based on the person, on how hypo they are, on how ill they are, how big they are. For a lot of us that are very, very big and super hypo, carbohydrates are very helpful. They can actually help you have energy to get through the day and to do things. So depending on your current state, I would shift towards probably less fat at first, not no fat, less than carbs, just because fat is a little bit heavier in calories and you need to have energy, and you're usually going to need carbohydrates. So again, I think that this advice is kind of bad for very big people. Now, I feel like I'm getting to a point now where I've lost, a significant amount. I've actually regained a bit this fall, this winter, whatever you want to call this time. But I'm not that worried. I'm sure it will come back off because I'm actually going to shift and actually reduce carbohydrates. But it took me a while to get to a state of like moderate hypothyroidism, more moderate obesity compared to what I was. And that's when I'm now considering to reduce carbohydrates, just to overall reduce calories. But to start with, it was more so on the fat side because you need energy to live. You need energy. So I would say for a lot of people, they're going to have a really hard time reducing carbohydrates, especially in the beginning. I think that's more of an intermediate or advanced place to be honest. I think that's more so something that somebody who has like 20 pounds to lose, they would probably benefit from reducing carbohydrate, not completely, but to a lower level, if that makes any sense, than what they're probably at. But it's like, yeah, anyways, I don't agree. Okay.
20-40-40 is a good split. Never try to cut fat from your diet.
Yeah, I would never say 0. And on this channel, we emphasize to have saturated. So try to balance out the polyunsaturated fat in your fat cells with saturated fat in your diet. That is greatly helpful for hormone health. Okay.
You need it for all kinds of things, especially as a woman. 4, lift heavy weights. Everyone should lift weights. The more muscle you have, the more calories you will burn just by having extra muscle, which makes weight loss much easier. Don't pick up puny 2-pound dumbbells and do millions of repetitions. You should be doing actual lifting.
So I don't necessarily agree with that either. I would more so suggest for very, very fat people to do moderate lifts. You don't want to get injured ever. So if you're very weak as a very obese person, do not try to push yourself beyond any level of anything. Just don't. Just lift what you can lift. Make sure you're getting a burn. Make sure it's enough to feel sore. And lift. Because I don't really agree. I love how much I don't agree with this person. I think one of the best benefits as a very, very fat person is not just to build muscle, but to actually burn fat at the same time. So when you're lifting, you're being active. And that's burning calories and that's burning fat. It's also putting you in a state where you will burn more fat after the workout. So I would just lift moderately heavy, not too heavy, but I wouldn't do like 3 reps. I'd do like 10. Lift a decent amount to have that go on for a while, because when it goes on for a while, then you do burn a lot of calories and you build muscle at the same time. Because when you're very obese, you can burn fat and gain muscle at the same time. So that's actually what I would suggest. That's what I did this year and it helped a lot.
5. Don't let your body bring down your self-esteem. You have a lot of control of the shape of your own body, and you get to pick what you want to look like. There's no shame in carrying around some excess body fat. Everyone will be there at some point in their life. The good news is, if you're dissatisfied with your body, with some work, you can look how you want to.
So I would just say, don't think about it too much. So I'm not saying to gaslight yourself, but don't identify with your obesity. It's a huge, huge, huge barrier to a lot of people. So I do agree with this number 5. I would just say just live your life, so to speak. Just try not to think about it. Don't think about it as a self-esteem issue, or don't think about it as your identity. Don't think about it as these things. Be like me. If somebody uses your weight as an insult, don't internalize that label or that part of you as a part of your identity, because it's not. And that way, when people do insult it, it doesn't really sting, because if somebody tells me, oh, you're so fat, or oh, you look horrible, or whatever, to me, it's I don't identify with my fatness, so it doesn't really hurt my feelings. It's just okay, this person's really shallow and stupid. That's basically all I think. And it's usually this person has no argument. It's fair enough. Anyways, let's continue.
6. Go back to Foot Locker and tell that woman to go F herself. It's one of the few groups of people that it seems to be socially acceptable to treat like crap, and people who are that way inclined will use any excuse to justify it, while ignoring anything that doesn't fit in with their view that insulting people who are overweight is okay. It's a far more complex issue than most people want to accept. A lot of people who are overweight aren't overweight because they are lazy or overindulge. There is usually a more fundamental psychological reason which might bring on these behaviors, whether it's down to depression and self-esteem issues, or down to poor parenting, or any number of reasons. Now, these things can cause a lack of motivation or comfort eating, which then causes people to become overweight. But because people are bumholes and like to insult people who are overweight and try to justify it in whatever way they can, the cycle continues. I'm not saying that's the case in every situation, but I would say it is so in the majority of situations.
Okay, so I don't really like this comment, to be honest. I think at the end of the day, this is where we're going to get a little bit real. At the end of the day, the reason why somebody is overweight is because they're overeating. Now, I do think for a large group of people, they overeat for physical reasons. And we tie that back to hypothyroidism a lot on this channel. We tie it back to a high appetite, increased hunger, a lot of these things, slow metabolism, right? You're not producing energy from the food that you're eating, so you eat more because you need energy. That's why a lot of people eat a lot for many, many years. Now, when it comes down to gaining weight massively, it is usually some kind of issue, whether it is a hormonal issue or it is actually BED, or you're eating because you like the way food tastes. But usually people that eat because they like the way food tastes, they usually stop. Usually you're very, 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 very big people. It usually has to do with BED and then a hormone issue caused by eating too much bad food that ruins your hormones. And once you're in that situation, it's kind of like being in a pit, especially from a very big size, and it is difficult to lose it. So what I will say is this. no matter what anybody else did to you, said to you, whatever to you, obesity, at the end of the day, it is something that is self-inflicted. Obesity is caused by an excess of food, which means it's something that is deliberate. You have to be putting in the effort to gain the weight. It's not something that's not just going to happen. I don't think you can blame poverty as much as other things just because it takes more money to actually buy more food. So that's not exactly real. What I will say is poverty can be a part of it, as you can have access to poor food. It can be a barrier to losing weight, but it's not really a reason why somebody gets super morbidly obese. Does that make sense? So I think people use that and they'll say, oh, well, this person got super morbidly obese because they're impoverished. And I would say, no, but that could be why they're having a hard time losing it. So that's true. It is a barrier because you usually have to buy higher quality food, and that can cost more. And it's difficult psychologically to pay more money for less calories. It's a very difficult psychological barrier when you are struggling with money. It's very difficult to actually do that. So anyways, apart from that, I just think it's really important that we do keep the blame on ourselves, just because even if something bad happened to you, you have to resolve that. Even if there is a hormone issue, you have to resolve that. You can't just go on that way, and you can't just blame everybody else. And as far as if people are mean or whatever, people are mean to everybody. It is what it is. I don't know. I just think that's like it's like kind of like a non-statement, to be honest. Okay, let's continue.
There's a great TED Talk about cultures focused heavily on individual achievement, i.e., I succeeded because I'm awesome. The flip side being that failures are seen as individual inadequacy, i.e., you failed because you are useless. I think that being overweight is seen as failure in our culture, and whilst many overweight people may be making poor lifestyle decisions, there are others where a variety of factors beyond their control may come in play.
See, this is why I don't like Reddit. Because it's kind of just like, there is like a group of Redditors, I think like Fat Logic or Fat People Stories, where they do hate fat people. But most of Reddit, I think, is kind of just fat acceptancy, because I'm getting to kind of fat acceptancy logic. And it's like, I understand what they're saying. I do. But it's also not completely right. Like, again, we always go away from the physical problems. You guys have seen this. If you guys have seen this channel, you see that every single time I cover this topic, every single time we look at a discussion of obesity that is not within Fat Acceptance TikTok, they always forget the physical side. They only ever talk about emotions. Every single discussion. Sorry, I'm snapping. I'm just like so irritated. Every single discussion around obesity feels like it is about emotions, and it is about systemic issues, and it is about identity, and it, at the end of the day, is a physical problem. And I am so sick of that. So we're doing this here again. Oh, it's easier to believe someone's problems are their own fault, as it makes us feel immune to similar problems. That doesn't even really make sense to me at all. But I think it made sense to that person, because similar problems, like, I don't know. That's weird.
However, it's easier to believe that someone's problems are their own fault, as then it makes it.
I think a lot of people on Reddit, they write stuff and they think they sound intelligent, and they don't. Like, they're not intelligent. That was not a very intelligent statement.
Feel immune to similar problems. TLDR, we hate fat people, because if we blame them, then it makes us awesome for not being fat.
Okay, so I don't think this is true of the general public. I think most people in the general public, it's just like fat person, ew, gross, unattractive, that's about it. I don't think it really goes deeper than that. It could be that, or it's usually fat person, overconsumption, environment, whatever, you should be vegan. It's like that kind of thing. Or it's you're over capitalistic or this or that, right? Or it's, yeah, that's about it. That's probably what most people are actually thinking about when they see a fat person. It's ugly, overconsumption, or bad for the environment, or they have some diet and they judge based on that diet that they have, or it's just, just misanthropic people, basically. So that's what I think it is most of the time. But I don't think people necessarily connect it to I'm awesome for not being fat. Most people who are thin, they just see it as the default. So they're not usually thinking like they are awesome unless if they are in really, really good shape. I think an average shape person, they just think whatever, because they're always comparing themselves to people who are better than them. That's kind of how that goes, right? There's always somebody more in shape. There's always somebody less in shape, right? So I think it's like that, to be honest. I think the only types of people that could be this way are people that have lost all the weight. And if they didn't lose it very healthfully, then they might feel that way. If they like had to practically die to lose it, then they might feel awesome for not being fat. Does that make sense? I don't think that's a general thing.
It disgusts me when skinny people scoff at fat people at the gym. My old friend would see fat people at school and say she needs to work out. And when she saw fat people swimming laps or jogging, she would say, that's so gross. What the frigging frig?
Okay, so this is interesting because this does exist a lot. So what you'll actually find, I find it, there's a lot of people who are kind of like average size or kind of chubby a little bit. When they look at very fat people, they are very weirdly threatened by a fat person working out, I think. Or there's sometimes people, like, there's a huge issue within society where the idea of changing is seen as really toxic and negative, or something to be ridiculed. So if you try to improve yourself, or if you try to do anything, this can be true with finances as well. Like, let's say you're working hard and you want to make more money. People will hate that as well. Oh, you're working so much. Oh my gosh, you just think you're better than us now, don't you? Blah, blah, blah. Those kind of comments, for some reason, people see fatness as extremely financial. I do think it's tied back to fat acceptance rhetoric. Because they always make everything about like class and all these weird things. But there is this weird financial, people view weight as a financial thing. It's like calories in, calories out. It's like money in your bank account, money out of your bank account. Like, that's not what it's like at all. I really wish people would just stop, because that's not at all what it's like. What it's like is somebody that has a disease that is working to heal their disease. It's more like having the plague and sunbathing to try to boost your immunity to fight the plague. That is more like what it is like to exercise when you are super morbidly obese. So it's very frustrating that people have all these weird notions about it. And just imagine judging somebody that has the plague for trying to get immunity by sitting in the sun. That's the lowest common denominator of type of person. So I do agree with this person, but I just think that that logic comes from that. Like, people don't like it if you change. They really hate it. A lot of people in society, when you're a fat person, they see you as a fixture that should never change. And if you do, you will often have people come after you. And even that is seen in public sometimes. So there is a misconception that fat acceptance TikTok has caused, where they assume that if you're losing weight, you get less hate, or you're more accepted as a big person, or if you're apologetic for your size, or whatever the heck, if you're a good fat or whatever they say, they assume that you're treated better. But in their fat acceptance society that they've helped create, you're actually treated much worse until you've actually lost the weight. As you're losing it, you're treated worse. So I'm not surprised that this person experienced that. It's very sick. It's a huge barrier to weight loss. And that, I think, is bad. I think what we need to do is just like, where I do agree with fat acceptance is that we need to not worry so much about other people's bodies. I think there is like a very weird obsession with other people's bodies. Like even for me as a fat person losing weight, I have friends that are losing weight as well. I have friends that are, their bodies may change or whatever. It's like, I don't know. It's not something that really, like, when I see somebody's body change, it doesn't like shatter me to my core as a person. I think a lot of people are that way. It's very bizarre. And so I think maybe there's just a lack of identity in people. There's a lack of stability within themselves, and everybody's basing who they are around everyone else. It's weird. It's really, really weird. I know that's a really long, convoluted thing, but that is why I think this type of thing happens. That's what I see. If you guys think I'm crazy, just tell me I'm crazy. That's fine.
That might be common in high school, but not at your typical adult gyms. I've been a member of about 10 different gyms now, and I've never seen someone make any comment about a fat person. Most people keep to themselves.
So I would say older people, so anybody who's above the age of 30, they're not going to trip about it usually. It would be extremely rare for that to happen. Very, very rare, especially over the age of 40. Oh my gosh, you will like never see it, right? I think it's a lot of like college people will do that and that kind of stuff. I actually did have that experience when I was in college. I went to the campus gym and I was so incredibly judged for going. I felt like a freak. Like I was stared at by everybody in that gym. And it was like, they were really, I don't think that they were upset that I was there. I think that's a little too far for me because I'm not a fat acceptance person. But it was just, they were so shocked that it kind of freaked me out. Especially as a fellow young person, it was too much. I felt like there was a huge spotlight on me. And I think that that can be kind of helpful just to keep in mind, like, it's good to just not put attention or bring attention to people that are at the gym that are really big, in my opinion. I think that would be your best bet because most of the time it's just like a feeling of it's embarrassing. And it's like, I just want to get in and get out. That's how a lot of people feel. It's not everybody, but that is how a lot of fat people feel because we're not always used to moving our bodies and certainly not moving it in public. It can be a lot. And there is this other stigma that goes with it. So I think just letting fat people fly under the radar for the most part is good. I did get a compliment at the gym. Somebody did tell me, they're like, you've lost like 50 pounds, haven't you? Which that was pretty cool. He was an older guy. He had seen me go to the gym for like 5 months or whatever. And that actually was really nice just because, especially when you're in a smaller town, like you see the same people every day. That can kind of be a little bit nice. But I had already been going for like 5 months. It's like I would never suggest just like talking to somebody who's just showing up because it's like people get scared, I don't know. I hope I'm making sense.
The gym. Because I need the hate to keep me from eating popcorn, chicken, and pizza, and deep fried shrimp with ranch sauce and Coke with ice in it. I need to hate fat people, or my anger-based discipline will break down and I will start eating breakfast egg and bacon sandwiches from Hardee's, or a chicken biscuit and hash browns, or a waffle with chocolate chips and syrup, or ice cream filled with donuts. I need to keep hating fat people, or I will become one.
So this is very interesting. I do think I didn't think about this as much. I think because I am so far from anger-based discipline, that is not me at all. But when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, yes. That I see so many people online that have that type of mindset. I actually advise against this, especially from a super morbidly obese place. You need to lose weight with the least amount of stress possible. It needs to be the most calm way to lose the weight as you can. Because if you base it on anger and hate and anxiety and these types of feelings, it can make you into this type of person, for one, but also those hormones and that adrenaline and those feelings that you feel long term, they actually slow your metabolism and it makes it harder to lose weight. And that's why this person probably feels like they have to practically just like hate fat people in order to keep the weight off, because their metabolism is probably so much slower from losing it in this anger-based discipline type of way. I do not advise this at all for this reason. All I can say is when I lose the weight, I want to be at a place where I don't have to think about it at all, other than if I'm joking or something. Like if I do a fat phobic joke or something, like that I wouldn't care at all. But it wouldn't be like, because I told you guys, I like offensive humor, but it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, you know, I really feel this in my heart. Like, no, it'd be a joke. Like, just a joke, you know? So it's like, that's what I want it to be. I want to feel light when I lose the weight. I'm not trying to feel heavy and dark. I just want to feel like lighter, not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. Does that make sense? And I think that's a better goal, because I think that's more sustainable, and that also makes it harder to gain the weight back because your metabolism will be faster. So, oh gosh, I feel bad for this person. I really do, because I have no idea what they did to lose it, but it doesn't sound good.
I appreciate your honesty. I suspect this is the exact reason a lot of people who used to be larger or who seem predisposed to gaining weight have such incredible and vocal hatred for large people, but I've never heard anyone admitting it.
So a lot of people do admit it, and for some reason they wear it as a badge of honor. But like I told you, to me, it just shows an extremely adrenaline-based weight loss, which is very unhealthy, not as sustainable, and cause a lot of issues, both emotionally, relationship-wise, because you're not just hating fat people, you're probably hating other people too. It also creates a lot of incentives for crisis in your life when you're living from adrenaline. I've lived from adrenaline for many years. I will say 2023 is the year that completely died in me. Technically, my adrenaline was going down 2022, that whole year, but this year it was really, or I guess my cortisol was, but whatever, same thing to a certain extent. Not really, but you get what I'm saying. That cortisol stress hormone effect was going down last year. This year, because the adrenaline and everything had gone down, it forced me to reconstruct my life and my identity outside of a crisis state of mind. And it was incredibly difficult, but this year is the year that I leave that behind. So I'm never going to be this type of person. Thank God. Literally, thank you, God. I don't want to be this kind of person ever again. So that's really what I left behind this year. And it was difficult. There's a lot of hormone changes. I've had many, many brain changes this year, but it's really important to do this from a firm foundation. Otherwise, you have to hold on to weird things like anger-based discipline. I just don't think that's good. I don't. I really don't.
It seems like for some people, this hatred even extends to thin, fit people who happen to be consuming junk food or high-calorie food on some given occasion. It amazed me the first time I encountered a "how could anyone put such a disgusting amount of carbs into their body" comment from someone, and then it immediately made me feel so much sympathy for larger people, since they must get harassed like that all the time.
I don't think it's all the time, to be honest. I think that's an exaggeration. Maybe online, but not all the time, even online. Like, I've posted mukbangs in my past, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So I don't know. I don't think it's everybody, but anyways.
I don't hate fat people for being fat. However, I hate when fat people think the world should cater to them because they're fat. No, airlines don't need to make bigger seats just for 400-pound people. And if you squeeze yourself into a seat and spill over into the personal space of the people...
I completely agree with this. I think this is a very good place to be as a normal person or a lay person. in the world. I think that's a very good perspective to have.
Next to you, they have a right to judge you. Exactly. I'm fat, but I'm trying to do something about it, and I don't expect to get anything special for it. I work at Walmart, and nothing pisses me off more than seeing old guys walking through the store with walkers, while all the electric carts have been taken by fat people who have no problem walking. They just think they're entitled to it. It irritates me as well to see fat people eating 2 people's worth of food and then getting upset that someone judges them for it. You can't expect to not get judged for it if you aren't at least trying to fix it.
So I can kind of agree. I don't know about the amount of food. I think it's really hard to like look at somebody and be like, this amount of food. Like, I think you're probably, unless if you really know that person, you're probably looking too deeply at somebody else. But I do agree with, it is bad. If you can walk, you shouldn't be using that. Like, that is laziness. That's bad. So I can totally understand that, and I totally agree.
For right or wrong, it's viewed as choice and a weakness of character. We have a warped perception of what is a healthy weight, but in the US at least, there also seems to be this movement for I'm fine the way I am and big is beautiful. Sure, bigger people can absolutely be beautiful, but not because they are overweight. If you are in your mid-20s, have trouble getting out of a chair, and weigh several hundred pounds, then you should not be told you're fine the way you are. You should not be belittled or mocked, but just for their own health, we shouldn't tell people they should learn to love the way they are. They should be encouraged to get healthy.
That's true. So I completely agree with that.
I find it ridiculous that so many here say they judge obese people because they are damaging their health. How many of these posters drink alcohol, speed while driving, ride motorcycles? Do they eat a diet of whole grains and fish and get regular physicals and checkups? Do they never eat fast food, red meat, and do they...
Okay, there's nothing wrong with red meat, so this person is already off. And whole grains and fish are way over glorified. They're just not that great. They're not going to help you lose weight. They just aren't. You're going to be hungry. I would suggest eating a lot less grains if you're overweight. It's not good. It's more insulinogenic and it can slow weight loss. Red meat is really good to have, so you should be eating it.
Exercise 30 minutes every day? Admit the truth. You don't care about their health. You find it physically repulsing. Also, I'll say that as an overweight woman, not obese, that hands down the most criticism that I get from society is from overweight/obese men.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, the most people I get judged for is usually people that disagree with me on an issue or vegans. A lot of times, I don't know what it is about me, but vegans, they really, they're very, very upset that I'm overweight. But yeah, I would say that would be, for whatever reason, that's the group that I get the most hatred for. Other than people who I disagree with, which I disagree with a lot of people. So it's kind of like, if I say a certain point that somebody doesn't like, then they'll shame me for my weight. But other than that, I mean, not really. Like I said, the only place that I really feel socially ostracized or a social barrier is in the dating market and in the dating world, which is totally fair. I think if you're not attracted to somebody, you should never feel any pressure, right? So I worry about romantic attraction a lot. And that's not really judgment or hate or whatever. I think that's just... is just a problem. It's a barrier. So that bothers me socially. Again, the major thing is the health stuff. That's what really bothers me. The health stuff, the inability to work as much or get stuff together because you don't have any energy and you don't have this and you don't have that. All that stuff is so much worse than even the social aspect of the dating aspect. But in terms of hate, that's the only hate that isn't really hate that I actually care about as far as it pertains to other people. Otherwise, it's all about functionality within my own life of why I'm doing it. It's a very practical decision to lose weight. It's a very smart decision to lose weight for health reasons, financial reasons, for logistical reasons, to be able to help other people in your life better. be at a better position to like take care of your own children, like if you have kids, or take care of aging parents. It's just very important to be strong as you can be to support people in your life, because why wouldn't you want to do that if you can, right? So that's kind of how I see it. So yeah, that stuff matters a lot more than like the social dynamics of who's judging me. It's like, if it's not my weight, it's going to be whatever else. They'll be like, oh, your hair, oh, this, oh, your face, oh, and then my voice, your voice. Gosh, I have gotten so much crap for my voice. But yeah, that's never going to go away. No matter how much weight I lose, they'll have that. So it's never going to go away. You know, it's like, it's just, haters going to hate, period.
Now, that is something I will never understand. I am considered obese, and knowing how much getting crap about it hurts, I don't give other people like me crap, especially women. I'm a gentleman, so I don't act like an idiot, but there's a more pungent lack of logic when I hear a man larger than me call a girl a fat bee. I have lost friends over this. When I called him out on it, he called me a chubby chaser and blind because no girl that fat can be attracted to anyone. This prompted me to say something hurtful, but that's beside the point. I'm trying to say too.
Well, to me, I think that's kind of like a projection too. And like that happens within anything, where there's people who don't like something about themselves and they see it in somebody else and they shout about it. That's just very typical. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about obesity. It's not a special topic. It's not something special that is just set aside from every other thing. It just isn't. It's like anything. People will have an issue with literally anything and everything. So it's one of those issues. That's basically it.
Obese men facing a comparable but not equal amount of torment should be especially sympathetic to larger women and treat them like they would any other woman, just like we men want to be treated like any other.
Okay, so I don't really agree with that. I think there is a lot of promotion of larger women, especially today. That does not exist for men at all. I will say as well that it can be harder when you're a man just because you're actually physically bigger. So there's a lot more barriers, like in terms of seating, or like you don't fit into a lot more spaces. So I don't agree with that at all. I think the judgment aspect, I think maybe if you were just like sort of chubby as a man, you would get less hate than a sort of chubby woman, but from a very big size, when you get to be really big, it's kind of the same, to be honest. I think because I don't know, I just don't agree with that. I think that's just kind of virtue signaling and whatever. Because see, even in this, like, larger women reading this, you are beautiful, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a lot of push for that. So I don't agree at all that it's like just exclusively worse for women. I think it's basically the same, to be honest. I think it's one of the few things that is the same. Like I said, unless if you're just like a kind of chubby guy, then you might not get as much hate as a kind of chubby woman. But if you're big, it's pretty much on par. I'm sorry. Now, I think there could be like a sort of physical intimidation factor if you're a guy, where people may not say as much in public. That I could see. But women just kind of get more comments in general. So they get more praise, they get more hate, right? It's like that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot more chatter about women's bodies, but it's good and bad. So I don't know. I guess in my mind, it just kind of cancels out, to be honest. But yeah, I think if you're very, very fat, it's bad. You're struggling regardless.
Man, the second thing is that to the larger women reading this, you are beautiful. It sucks to constantly get crap about your weight without anyone knowing the real you. I have felt that hurt, but it doesn't compare to the pain you may have felt. What I want you to do is live your life and be happy. Don't give a damn what the hecklers say. Be you and be happy. Okay,
and that's the thing too. Like, this doesn't actually help women. So if you actually care about women, you should tell women to get healthier, to actually take care of yourself. Like, we don't play this game on this channel. It is no excuse to be a woman, to be super morbidly obese. No. No, 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 no. No. Now, as a woman, you will and should have a higher body fat percentage than a man. That's completely valid, but you should still not be super morbidly obese. No. I care about women as well. So no, we don't do that here. We don't play that game. You need to lose the weight. If you are overweight, you need to lose it as well. Gosh.
Seeking a soulmate, that is the most attractive thing you can do. If you want to coast through alone, it applies to you too. Be happy, live your life, and ignore the haters. Sincerely, a guy
Virtue signaler.
gives a damn. The converse can also be true. I had a friend who was easily 400 pounds and had never been on a date, let alone being a perpetual virgin. I told her I would find guys for her to date. I introduced her to a few guys at different parties who were also single and really nice people. They also happened to be overweight, but not nearly as much as her, maybe 60 pounds at the most. She told me she didn't find fat guys attractive at all and had no interest in them. I asked her what type of guys she was interested in, and she started pointing out guys that were super ripped. I was so confused. Here she is complaining about guys being so superficial when they have no interest in her, and then she's doing the same thing to men and not bothering to see the person inside.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Like I said, I really don't think that it is, once you get to a certain size, it's really not that different. I think it's just a waste of time in this discussion to try to make it a gendered issue and to try to create division based on sex and gender. I think it's really stupid, and I think it's a waste of time. So we're never going to go along with that on this channel. But we've read an article where this one girl, she was like brutal to this guy that was fat. But yeah, I mean, it's that same thing of like, this person has something about themselves that you don't like, that, you share that same quality. So you project your own self-loathing onto that person. That happens with so many different things. But regardless, it's okay to not find fat people attractive no matter who you are. But it's also okay for people to not be attracted to you because you're fat. So as long as we have that as an understanding, we are golden. We're absolutely golden. We seem to lose that one a lot in the fatness space, in the fatosphere. It's not good.
And that brings us to the end of the video, narwhals.
Okay, so that was interesting. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know. I may look into Reddit a bit more. I mean, I'm not going to always leech off of this person's channel, but I mean, whatever. It's promo, kind of. I mean, I think they probably have more subscribers than I do, but whatever. I just thought it was interesting. Let me know what you guys think below. Let me know if you want me to do anything more Reddit-y. I'm interested in it. It's interesting to me, kind of, just to see what people say. But yeah, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. And I will talk to you guys again very soon. I hope you have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. See you later.